2016, it was, again, right when my wife and I were, going through our stuff. I woke up in the middle of the night going, couldn't breathe. And woke my wife up, and she's great. She's great in emergencies. Like, I freeze, and she knows exactly what to do, right? And so she's like, she gets me up and sits me up. She puts a bunch of, it's funny, puts a bunch of pillows behind me. And it was like, I was like, from that moment on, I was like, because I used to give her crap. I'm like, why do you have all these pillows on the bed? We don't use these. All these decorative pillows are so stupid. And like that day, I'm like, all right, this is helpful. We know. Yeah. So I'm sitting up, and I'm like, I'm barely sleeping because I'm sleeping sitting up, which is not easy. And then the next day, it's not better. And so she sends me to the ER. They misdiagnosed me with pneumonia and give me a Z-pack of antibiotics. They said, if it doesn't get better, go get a second opinion. They were really convicted in that part.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't certain. He saw a mass on my lung. Ended up not being pneumonia. So like a day or two goes by and I can't breathe. He drained my lung of fluid. And I go back and I go to the ER. I can't breathe. My lung's full again of fluid. And then this went on for 11 days. Every other day, I'm going into the ER having 1 to 2 liters of fluid drained from my lung. And they don't know what's wrong. Finally, I go see this doctor, and I had just moved to Texas like a couple months before, so it's a new doctor. I've only seen him for like my first checkup. And we do all a bunch of tests. I go home, get a call the next day, and my wife was out of town because we had a trip scheduled to see my grandma, and first time she was going to get to visit the grandkids. My daughter was 7, my son was 4, and so I'm like, you guys, but I couldn't go because I couldn't breathe. I go, you guys go without me. I don't want to leave. My poor grandma's going to be so sad that I can't be there. Like, you guys got to at least go. So I go. I get a call from the nurse, and she says, doctor would like you to come in so he can go over results. And I go, oh, can you give me a little bit of, tell me what's going on? She goes, no, he wants to tell you in person. And I go, oh, that's usually not good. So I go, and he says, it's so funny. This brings back all the lessons I shared earlier. He goes, well, Hal, saw something on your lung, definitely. And he's just beating around the bush. He's like, there's definitely something there. And I can tell he's like having trouble telling me what he found, like what he thinks it is. And so I lean in, no, not kidding. I put my hand on his arm. I go, doctor, I said, hey, I can tell you're having trouble telling me, like, I don't know, maybe it's bad news. I said, I want you to know I live my life by this thing called the 5-minute rule.
Oh, no way.
And I go, whatever you're going to tell me right now, I'm at peace with it. You could tell me I'm going to die, and if that's my reality, I'm at peace with it. He goes, okay, well, looks like you have cancer. And I was like, what? I was not expecting that, I was like, he's like, I'm not sure what kind it is, but it looks like we need to get more testing. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And so I go out to the car, and he's like, I'm going to schedule you for more tests. And I call Ursula. She's at the zoo with my mom, who had flown out to meet her with my grandma. And I'm like, I'm just thinking how my wife's going to receive this, and my mom's going to receive this, and my grandma, and I literally am at peace with it. I'm like, all right, I have cancer, so I'll figure that out, right? Like, there's no point in being distraught over it. I can't change it, so I'm just going to figure it out, right? Like, that's how once you practice the 5-minute, that's the point. When you practice the 5-minute rule, at first it sounds like 5 minutes is not enough time to be upset. Like, I need more than 5 minutes. Yeah. And the first time I set my timer for 5 minutes, it went off. I was like, I know it's a tangent, but it's important. I go, I'm still pissed. Like, dude, and 5 more minutes, right? But here's the crazy thing. After about a week of that, I remember I had a customer cancel the biggest order I ever had in my short little sales career, and I set the timer for 5 minutes. I'm like, dude, how could she do that? Like, I know she could afford it, and I needed that. That got me over my goal for the week. What am I going to do now? I'm like, I guess I got to get on the phone. And I picked up the timer, and I was like, there was like 4 minutes and 32 seconds left. And I was like, oh. Whoa. I was like, why don't I just say can't change it now? And then I literally, in that moment, I was like, dude, I'm going to do the 5-second rule. Why be upset for 5 minutes over something I can't change when I can just literally snap my fingers and go, I can't change it. What can I do now? Like, so just for anybody listening, that's the evolution. And that's, I mean, I've shared this. I've had, I have hundreds of emails from people saying this can't change it philosophy. I know we're shifting to that, but like, it changed their life. Like, they're like, dude, I got divorced. I was depressed for like a year. I learned about the fact that, I just have the choice to accept it and move on. And I did. And now I'm not depressed anymore, right? So anyway, so I called my wife, and she was just, you can imagine, right? Like, in her mind, I know the way she thinks. I had taught her can't change it for years. It never stuck, right? She's like, I'm tired. Don't tell you your motivational bullshit. I can be upset for more than 5 minutes if I want. I'm like, all right. So I knew how she was going to process it, which is like, my husband is going to die, possibly, likely, maybe, right? And so she breaks down in tears, and I said, sweetheart, I said, I live by the miracle equation, which is that's another book I wrote after cancer, because of cancer. I was like, I have unwavering faith that I'm going to beat this cancer, and I'm going to do everything in my power, everything, relentlessly pursue every option, including every holistic practice, which I did, and I'm going to beat cancer. I just want you to know that. So you have nothing, you're allowed to be afraid, but I'm telling you, in my mind, there's a 100% chance that I will beat this cancer. So that's how I found out, and then one other piece of it is, she flies home, and we go to get a second opinion at MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is like one of the top cancer centers in the country. And then I find out which cancer it is, and I'm there in the office. She's holding my hand under the table, and the oncologist says, "This cancer, it's not good. You have it's acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It's a 20 to 30% survival rate." So I mean, you can imagine, especially with 2 kids, man. I'm like. Yeah. Right. The other side of that is 70 to 80% chance you're going to die and leave your kids without a dad and your wife without a husband. So my wife is squeezing my hand under the table at that point so hard. And he said, you need to start chemo in the next 24 hours. He said, you need to start chemo immediately, because at that point, they discovered not only was my lung failing, my heart was on the verge of failing, and they had to send me for an immediate procedure where they stuck a thick needle through my chest, because there was an 1/8 of an inch thick sac of fluid around my heart. And they said it was growing, and if it got any bigger, my heart would not be able to beat, and I would experience heart failure, and they'd have to perform open heart surgery on me. So but I had to sign a waiver saying this is a dangerous procedure because the sac of fluid is only an 1/8 of an inch thick, and we're going to puncture the needle, but it could happen that if your heart beats, it could puncture your heart, and we'll also have to perform open heart surgery. So you have to sign this waiver saying we're not liable for killing you. So, and then my kidneys were failing. And so the doctor said, you need to start chemo. And I said, look, doc, I don't want to use chemo. It's poison, no offense. I know it's your thing that you sell. I said, but I want to approach this holistically. I had watched a documentary years before called Healing Cancer from the Inside Out, and all these cancer patients that were told you have no chance of making it, and they healed their cancer naturally. And he said, okay, but Hal, he goes, I respect that you want to do that. Your cancer is so deadly and so fast acting. It's so aggressive. He said, you're on the verge of dying right now. You don't have the luxury of changing your diet or trying some holistic practice. He goes, I mean that sincerely. He said, literally, I would give you one, based on your condition now that we punctured the heart, and you have 1 to 2 weeks before your organs completely shut down and you die. And so I said, well, can I at least have 24 hours to go home and talk about this? And he goes, yeah, but I would decide tomorrow. And so I went home and I researched, and I found 2 of the best holistic oncologists in America. One of them was Suzanne Summers' doctor that beat her cancer naturally. I called both of them, and they both said, your oncologist is not exaggerating. Your particular cancer, we would not take the risk. You literally probably have if he's telling you have a week or 2 based on your organ failure, that's very normal. This cancer kills people in a few weeks. Your best option is chemo. And that was hard for me to hear, because I'm like, I know what it's going to do to my body. And by the way, Brandon, the chemo regimen, because this cancer is so fast-acting and so aggressive, it's one of the most aggressive chemo regimens known to man. I mean, a lot of people's chemo, they'll do like 1 hour a month or 1 hour a week. I did 100 hours every 3 weeks. Ooh. I ended up doing 750 hours of chemo in 7 months. And most people die from the chemo. That's why the survival rate is so low. And you think about it, the doctor's saying, if you trust me with your life and do my medicine, you have a 20 to 30% chance of surviving, right? Yeah. And if you don't, you're probably going to die either. Like, so, yeah. Anyway,
if
so
it's 100%.
It's 100%. That's what he's saying. And so what I did is I just did the best of both. I said, okay, I'm going to do your chemo because it seems like that's my only option. If the best holistic oncologists aren't going to see me, I'm not going to go rogue. and do it on my own. But I'm going to also take 100% responsibility for my recovery. I'm not going to count on you guys. You don't. At the end of the day, you don't care. I'm just a number on your balance sheet, right? I'm going to relentlessly research every holistic option and protocol and methodology available, and I'm going to implement every single one. And I did. I did 3 coffee enemas a week. I did ozone sauna, lymphatic massage. I took 70 supplements a day. That's a lot of pills to swallow. I did, what else? Organic, vegan, raw diet, juicing. I mean, you name it. I did. And I doubled down on Miracle Morning. Every single one of my savers, beating cancer became my entire focus. I meditated on the feeling of being completely healed. And I prayed that I would beat cancer during my silence. I had affirmations that were affirming that I was committed to beating cancer, what I was committed to doing to beat it, why it was a must for me. I visualized my cells healing every day. I exercise what are exercises that oxygenate your cells to beat cancer. I read books on beating cancer. I journaled every day on my progress and what I was committed. I mean, my entire Miracle Morning was laser focused on beating cancer. And similar to the car accident, how quickly I rebounded and took my first step, the doctors were kind of amazed at how quickly my body was responding and healing.
Do you have a guess on